Koa Peat, welcome to college basketball. You just knocked off the reigning national champions.
You are Locked On College Basketball, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey there, what's up? Happy Tuesday. Welcome into the Locked On College Basketball Podcast, the only daily national college hoop show out there. I'm your host, Isaac Schade. You're joining me at the place to get your college basketball content every single day. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making us your first listener watch to get your Tuesday going the right way. To recap, the first day of the college basketball season. Special shout out to all the everydayers out there, all the great members of the Locked On College Basketball Discord as well. You want to join us there? That link's in the show notes, baby. Come on in. The water's fine. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Coming up on the show today, Arizona scores the first big upset of the season, knocking off the reigning national champion Florida Gators. Big push. They hold on late, overcome several crazy turnovers down the stretch. Villanova gives BYU a push, but AJ Dybantsa, Keita, and company hold on late. Good showing there. And tonight, we get the first annual Dicky V Invitational. Texas in Sean Miller's debut against Cam Boozer and Duke in his debut as well. Speaking of which, we had a whole bunch of big performances from big-time freshmen on Monday night. We'll talk about that as well. We're going to start the show by talking Arizona, Florida. Nobody better to help us do that than the host of Locked On Wildcats, LEIF THULIN. Let's get into it. The college basketball season's a day old, and we already have an upset. The Arizona Wildcats, 13th in the nation, with a 93-87 win over the defending national champions, bringing back that entire front court. But it did not matter because Arizona's talented trio of freshmen decided they wanted to play basketball. None more important on Monday night than oh my Koa Peat. LEIF THULIN joins me from Locked On Wildcats. This was a debut for Arizona ages. LEIF THULIN, what on earth was Koa Peat out there doing on Monday night?
For first team All-American things. I mean, it's going to be hard to crack that list because there's some really good players this year. And I think I was high on Koa Peat. I came in saying he'd be the leading scorer on the team, perhaps the leading rebounder. I did a season projection thing, and I said 16 and 8. I think I lowballed him. Like I think he's better than I even knew, and I've known about Koa Peat since he was 13 years old, and he started cracking those top 10 lists for those way down the road classes. And now he's here, and boy was he there! Like Alex Condon was the first team All-American power forward on the list, and he absolutely dominated him. And Alex Condon is a great player. And Koa Peat was the best player on the floor by miles and miles against the championship-winning front court.
Yeah, dude. Condon fouled out of this game eventually, like before it was even decided. Crazy stuff. Now, Leif, let's go back to the beginning of this game because Florida jumped out to a 12-point lead, and it kind of appeared like, oh, man, Gators are just going to hum on through this thing. The new look backcourt's going to be just fine. Thank you very much. And then we'll just ride Condon and Houck to victory. But Leif, what I want to get to is what did Arizona do to claw their way back in from that double-digit deficit?
Well, I think a lot of the deficit that became a deficit and a half at 12, like you're looking at that, it was self-imposed. Like there were turnovers that were on overdriving, just like losing the ball, stuff that you can't, plan for. You can plan for bad shooting. You can plan for, missing open shots, but you can't defend if they're getting runouts. And so what happened was my three keys for the game for Arizona were as follows. Win the glass, win or be even. They actually were +2. Win the fast break points or in better put turnover points off of turnovers. They were +5 in that at the end. But at that juncture, when they were down by 12, they were getting beaten badly in both those. And so that was the key. And what they stopped doing is turning the ball over. And when they could play Florida in the half court, Florida at one point made 7 of 8 to extend that run. But that was unsustainable, especially because Arizona couldn't have played as poor of defense. Like they got stuck on a lot of screens. Florida was executing really well, but Arizona was also allowing them to get 2 chances to score. they'd get 2 chances to score and get uncontested shots and run out. So I felt like Arizona needed to just calm down. If they could calm down in a somewhat succinct fashion and do it quickly, then they had every chance to win the game. I didn't expect it to be like as quick of a comeback. I expected it to be gradual and get their way back into this game. But it didn't shock me that Arizona won. In fact, I picked Arizona to win. I felt Florida was overrated. I don't know if we ever had a show. I'd have to look back through the shows I did with you and Andy this summer about Florida, but I've been pretty consistent on Twitter saying that they were overrated because they lost the championship backcourt, and their backcourt was fantastic last year, and everyone else is taking new roles. So I felt like these were 2 teams that were evenly matched, and one team was basically playing a home game. So I don't feel like it was an upset, but I will say I was impressed and pleasantly surprised by Arizona's ability to turn this game around as succinctly as they did, because I thought it would have to be gradual. And for about 30 minutes, they were the better team. And it was just the first 10 minutes they were outplayed.
Exactly. I mean, they had the lead before this, but by halftime, we got to, if you just looked at the box score, you wouldn't even know that first half lead happened because it'd be like, oh, Arizona was up. I mean, obviously Koa Peat, we mentioned him. I felt like it was Koa Peat early, Leaf, Jaden Bradley late. And this dude, the senior, the veteran, he really took over late. And I know Koa Peat, along with Anthony Del Orso, buried those critical free throws down the stretch to salt the game away. I'll ask you about the inbound troubles here in a second. But, man, what did Jaden Bradley do to really step in and take this game over in the second half?
So here's the interesting thing about Jaden Bradley. For his entire career, I have bemoaned that he is not a particularly good passer. But I have said he does 2 things excellently. He is a fantastic point of attack defender, and he is a fantastic rim pressure on offense. He gets downhill, and what they did is they played to his strengths. They said, you know what? You don't really need to pass if we can clear out space. Op around the ball screen, throw a short roll to Koa Peat, or get all the way to the rack. And so when Arizona gave up their lead and it was 67-67, I think I would put the blame on that run that Florida made on Jaden Bradley for not finding Koa Peat and having a couple turnovers as the captain, the veteran leader, the point guard. But then when the game swung, he scored 11 straight or 10 of 11 for Arizona. What he did was he played to his strengths. He got downhill to his right hand, worked around screens, and used his speed. So he pick and chose his times to do what he is best at, and also on defense had critical pokeaways and ran the 3-point shooters off of the line for Florida, because Arizona they made 2 threes, only attempted 5 all game and scored 93 points. I've said this a million times. So if anyone listens to Locked On Wildcats and this, you've heard this 1,000 times. Arizona knows where their bread is buttered. It is near the rim. And they scored 50 points in the paint, and a lot of them were right on top of the rim against a team that is behemoth on the interior. Jaden Bradley is the key to that because he's the one who can put pressure on from the exterior and open up lanes, and they can do it in transition and in the half court. If he can do it in the half court, Arizona, the stock is through the moon. So to answer your question, Jaden Bradley played to his strengths.
Leaf, I know you're on as the Locked On Wildcats host, but obviously you're somebody that pays attention to basketball at a big picture level. After having seen Florida tonight, or as folks listen to or watch this last night, what are your takeaways about the Gators? Are there things that you're encouraged by, and are there things that you're concerned with for Todd Golden's team?
Well, I am encouraged by Thomas Houck. He played on the perimeter and scored 27 points. I love Thomas Houck. You know
Do you think that's going to work, by the way, with him at the 3?
I think they're best with him at the 4. I think they'll close games with him at the 4. In fact, their run to tie it up at 67 apiece was made with Thomas Houck at the 4 with Micah Hanlockton at the 5. I do think this will work because they'll wear teams down. No one's going to be rebounding with them. And that's why Arizona won, because they out-rebounded Florida. Very few teams can do so. It took a heroic effort from Koa Peat and they still barely won. And I would say Florida struggled. They shot 7 of 27 from 3, and they also sent Arizona to the line 38 times. So you're not going to win games like that. And they still had a chance. But I've been very consistent about one point when talking about this team. I don't like their guards. I don't like them at all, in fact. I think Boogie Flan is a 2 guard masquerading as a 1. I think Xavier Lee is not a very good off the catch shooter, and he wasn't at Princeton either. And now you're going to go play in the SEC, or in this case against a really good Big 12 team, or against UConn, or against Duke. All those teams that they're going to play in the non-conference, they've got a gauntlet, and they have to figure stuff out. And that may help them, but I kind of see Florida as a 4 or 5 seed. And I've said that. I've been consistent that I think Florida is a team that doesn't have a championship ceiling because their guards aren't particularly good. But I think Todd Golden might be the best coach at maximizing players' talents in the country, and so he will do so. and they'll have a way around it because they'll get a ton of extra possessions, because when they miss, they'll get their own rebound and still be efficient, and they should be really good on defense. But it's really hard to win when your point guard's a two guard and your two guard's a point guard who can't catch and shoot. So I've been very consistent. I said this on Locked On Gators when we did a crossover. I said this in the offseason on other podcasts. But I just don't see Florida as a championship contender. I thought they were drastically overrated at third in the country.
One thing to note for Arizona, everyone, and I know Leif is high on this guy. While we're all talking about Koa Peat, we're all talking about JADEN Bradley. Just watch Ivan Karchenkov. Came away with that double-double, started this game. I think that is massive for Arizona. Leif, I know you're going to be talking about that a lot on your show. Last thing I want to ask you about this game, and then we'll get you. I know you got a big, bold take you want to hit me with on the way out the door. Any concern for you with those late game struggles from Arizona getting the ball in? Or is it just like, dude, it's the first game of the season, Isaac, lay off me, chill out. Arizona's going to figure those late game moments out.
So I do have one concern that I think will be everlasting, an evergreen concern. It's that Arizona really has one ball handler at the end of games, and that concerns me. They did not play a backup point guard. They actually played Braden Burries, who's not particularly good in this game. And so if
he fouled out, correct? If I remember correctly,
he fouled out, and so he wasn't in this game. So he would be the other one. And so I would say that that's a slight concern. But my concern would be they only really have one guy you want to go get the ball in that situation on the court right there, and that was Bradley. And so that means the guy you want to be inbounding is Karchenkov, who's the next best shooter. But you also want the relief outlet of Koa Peat and his like tight end frame to go get the ball. So I do think
you don't want Del Orso shooting those. You don't want Del Orso. Oh, you're just talking about getting the ball in.
I'm talking about getting the ball in. Like Del Orso,
I'm trying.
But if Karchenkov's in, Del Orso's probably not, or you're not playing a big. And so what I think is the issue is I don't know how you're going to get the ball because none of those guys are particularly dynamic to go towards the ball. And I wonder if it'll end up being like deep passes. Florida threw countless last year to Thomas Houck as touchdowns from Walter Clayton. Or you have Bradley as your inbounder, but then you have lesser shooters shooting them. I think that'll be alleviated once you get practice in these things. So the only concern is how many players can handle that situation of being trapped because they are young. However, I'm not worried at all because I think your 5-star guard played terribly. And he was a non-factor in the game. He scored 93 points while making only 2 threes. And it was against a team that should be very good defensively. But here's my bold take. And I want everyone to listen to this carefully because this is not.
I'm all ears. I'm listening. I'm all ears.
This is not just because they beat Florida. I said this morning or last night when I recorded for this morning's show prior to the game. And I said, here's a season preview for Arizona. And you guys can listen to this and see the timestamp if you'd like. And I encourage you to do so. What I would say, what I said is I think Arizona goes 11-2 in non-conference. And I think they beat Florida, and I think they beat UCLA, but I think they lose to Alabama and UConn, something like that. So they're going to go 11-2 in non-conference, and they're going to open up conference play in the Big 12, the best conference in the country this year, in my opinion, 7-0. And that means you're 18-2 to start the year, and they'll be the number 1 team in the country by January.
Woo, that is big and bold indeed. And Leif, if that comes to fruition, we're going to have to circle back around to Tuesday, November 4th to check out that take after the opening night. I love it. My man, thank you. So good to be together. Love you hosting Locked On Wildcats, folks. If you haven't already done so, go subscribe to the show. Give Leif a follow on Twitter. He's full of great college basketball content, not just Arizona. This man loves this sport, and you're going to want to give him a follow. All right, coming up next, the nightcap in Las Vegas, BYU and AJ Dybantsa taking on Villanova. We'll get to that game and our great host of Locked On Cougars, Mr. Jake Hatch, coming up in just a second. Right after I tell you about FanDuel, you guys, the NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on that action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of a game, or maybe you just want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything, from who's going to score next to who's going to get that late game comeback. Plus, you can combine all those bets into a same-game parlay for a chance at an even bigger payout. All of this, man, it keeps every game exciting because you got something riding on it. As we look ahead to that Dicky V Invitational tonight, Duke is favored by 8.5 over the Longhorns. We'll see how that plays out. You want to get in on it? Go ahead, because FanDuel right now is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. So head on over to FanDuel.com to sign up right now and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. What a joy it is to be joined by my buddy, Mr. Jake Hatch, the great host of Locked On Cougars, BYU edition, that is. Get that not ye confused with those Kelvin Sampson boys down in Houston, which is, Jake, I grew up in Georgia. There is a Houston, and it's pronounced Houston County. I crap you not, my friend. Okay,
Wow.
anyway, that is the detour I did not see coming tonight. Here we go. BYU, number 8 in the nation, holds off a late surge from Villanova, 71-66. I want to talk about that closing in just a second, Jake. And before I ask you about AJ Dybantsa individually, because my goodness, I got to ask you, man, what did you learn about this team on Monday night?
Well, the biggest thing I took away is they got pushed and pushed hard by a very, very tough-minded Villanova team. I don't think Villanova's like super talented, Isaac, but they play hard. And I think what Kevin Willard's building there, very impressive. I think that they're going to win games simply due to effort this season. They play with that same type of effort. But what I like from BYU is multiple times you saw Villanova take the lead. BYU took it right back. But then in the final stanza of this game, and that final media timeout, about 3 minutes and 30 seconds to go, BYU's execution, they just absolutely ground Villanova to a pulp in that final stanza and won the game, simply due to the fact they played better, more sound fundamental basketball than the Wildcats did.
Jake, it was surgical to me. I mean, we kept seeing, basically it was a two-man game with Koa Peat and either AJ Dybantsa or Rob Wright. And we'd get the pick, we'd get the roll action, and then Koa would just seal off whichever defender went with him. And it's just like, oh, here's a nice little layup for me on the left side. Or what, like, just Kevin Young, the way he has this team coached and trained and ready is clear the high level X's and O coach he is. And I got to tell you, Jake, if I'm you and I'm this BYU fan base, that has me feeling really good about the prospects for this season.
Yeah, it's just a continuation of what he showed last year, because last year's team, he played 10 guys deep and sometimes many as 12 guys deep. And I kept wondering all season long, is he kind of this rotation down? Is he going to figure this out? But all he did was say, hey, every one of these guys, they're capable of executing and doing what I expect them to do. I'll put them on the floor. And I thought it was a continuation of that in this game against Villanova. It's fun to see a team that plays fundamental basketball, even though you have star power, as you mentioned, in AJ Dybantsa and Rob Wright, and also Richie Saunders. But kind of the unsung hero in this game, I know that his box score isn't going to stand out. But Koa Peat, you already mentioned it. He was absolutely dominant on both ends of the court in this game. While those other guys will take the headlines, I think I think it was Brian Anderson from TNT who mentioned it. He's kind of that left tackle that gets kind of overlooked, but they're absolutely critical to the win.
And Jake, I've seen this team play twice now. I saw their exhibition against North Carolina, watched the vast majority of this game, and you're absolutely right. And I think it's such a great reminder to the box score college basketball lookers out there in the world. That's fine, but go watch the game to understand how important KK is to this team, man. It's absurd. That said, I would be doing college basketball sports media malpractice if I didn't ask you about the wonder that is AJ Dybantsa. And by the way, his dad looked like an absolute baller on Monday night. Tell me about what this young man did.
Yeah, AJ was very, very good. 21 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, and that's his first ever college basketball game, and showed everything you wanted to see outside of the fact that he was 2 of 7 from the free throw line. Like, that's really the only bad part of his game in that performance. And you're right. Ace, his dad, was showing out as he often does on national television, but it's cool to see that, obviously, because it's a family affair with the Dybantsa family. So cool to see that, obviously. But his performance showed you exactly what he's capable of. We had Jalen Rose, I think, in the pregame saying that he believes that AJ is going to be the number 1 pick in the NBA draft. And I don't think AJ did anything other than show that he's very capable of being that type of player this season.
I don't know what else we can say about Richie Saunders, but this dude puking all day and coming out, understandably, not a great, efficient shooting performance from him. But dude, it's just, again, we talked about the little things. That offensive rebound he got in the waning minutes it's like, those are the things that separate good teams from elite teams and good players from veteran heady players. What a cool thing, despite not feeling the best. What does Saunders add to this crew?
So like, it was his like flu game. Like, here's the thing. The most impressive thing is his shooting numbers, not great, but he ties for the team high with rebounds. You mentioned that offensive rebound late. That was absolutely critical to this win. That shows you the type of player he is. He's not feeling 100%. He looked less than 100%. Anybody who watched that game, you could see how deathly pale he was in that game. And he goes out there and shows out on a national stage. That just shows you, I think, the essence of what Richie Saunders is. He's all energy all the time. Even if he's not feeling 100%, he still puts it all on the line. And when you tie for the team high in rebounds, despite not being 100%, that shows you exactly what you want to see from that type of guy. Because first and foremost from Richie, he's a team first guy.
Yeah, man, that's absolutely right, Jake. And look, on the other side of things that you mentioned earlier, like it's going to probably be a year or so before Villanova gets back to being that talent that we're used to seeing back in the Jay Wright era. It just never really got to where it needed to with Kyle Neptune. Hopefully Coach Willard can get it. We talked about all the great freshmen around the country. Unfortunately, not that kind of night for a Caden Lewis, who I think is going to be one of the very best freshmen in the Big East, but he just didn't quite have it in this one. That is what it is. Hopefully we're seeing a little bit of something from Villanova there. Jake, going forward, man, anything else you take away from this team? Maybe things you didn't expect to happen that did, or things that you're like, I'm a little concerned about this, but here's how I think they'll fix it.
The biggest thing is I still want to see them play more with the pass. It felt like there were times in that second half where Rob Wright and AJ Dybantsa, too much dribbling, over dribbling in many respects, and trying to play one-on-one ISO ball. The genius of BYU last year under Kevin Young was they played at the pass and they played as a team. I want to see more of that from them. That was actually a concern I had in the exhibition games, both Nebraska and North Carolina as well. As there were moments where, they over dribbled, took too much of the possession, and hoisted up ill-advised shots, it felt like. So I think you can fix that just simply by drilling it into these guys' minds that trust your teammates, trust that they're going to make plays. And when you pass that ball off, it's going to come back to you as well. I know that guys like Rob Wright and AJ are used to being the heroes of their respective teams, but they got to understand this is a highly, highly talented basketball team. You don't always have to be in takeover mode.
That's a good word, Jake, because that was actually my biggest takeaway from the BYU North Carolina exhibition was I felt like Richie Saunders was relegated to a role that I wasn't used to seeing him in last year because of the dominance, the ball dominance that you just spoke about of the other two guys. And I think once BYU gets that ironed out, man, they're going to be rolling like a well-oiled machine. And that's a good thing, right? You want to grow and get better and improve as the season goes on. And that it's great to see that there is space for that. By the way, it sounds like, and Jake, please correct me if I'm wrong, we saw Keita like a little gimpy there at the end, but it sounded like he just took a shot to the shin and nothing weird because he was playing with his kneecap, and I was like, dadgummit, no. But all's good, right?
It sounds like it. So that's the good news. But you're right. Trust me, I was watching that too. I'm like, okay, no. This is going to put a damper on everything if that's a serious injury. But it sounds like, just took a shot to his shin and should be okay with some ice and rest.
Okay, that's great news. Excited to see what BYU has in store this season. Going to be a lot of fun watching this crew come together, figure out who they are, and just continue to ball out. Better days ahead, hopefully, for Villanova. Excited to see who they're going to be under Kevin Willard as he gets things figured out there. Now, our big game tonight, the inaugural Dicky V Invitational in Charlotte, North Carolina. Of course, that game's going to be on ESPN. We got the debut of another massive freshman. Cam Boozer playing for number 6 Duke against Texas in Sean Miller's debut as their coach. We'll have that preview and a roundup of all the great freshmen on Monday coming up in just a second. Right after I tell you about Game Time, y'all, college football is back, and I could not be more excited. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands, man, there really is nothing like it. And honestly, I feel that way even more about college basketball. But let's be real. Actually getting tickets to any of this can feel like more of a battle than the game itself. Plus, the endless lines, the hidden fees, prices jump up on you at checkout. You don't want that. And that's why you got to use Game Time. It's the app that gives the advantage back to fans like you. It's the easiest way to score last minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. what you see is actually what you pay. And it's so cool because you get views from your seat right there in the app. I love it. Why don't you, speaking of that Dicky V Invitational we're about to talk about, Duke and Texas, get tickets right now. Yes, I know it's tonight, but you can score great tickets for right there in the Spectrum Center for that event. Go check it out right now, or maybe go find some tickets for some of the great college basketball matchups happening this weekend as well. Take the guesswork out of buying college basketball tickets with Game Time. Download the app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Terms apply. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. There's all the buildup for the first day of the college basketball season that we forget that that's just one day, and we've got the whole rest of the season all the way ahead of us. Tonight's big matchup is going to be Texas against Duke, number 6th ranked Duke, in the Dicky V Invitational. This is the first time we've had this event. Shocker, it's going to be on ESPN. It'll be in the Spectrum Center in Charlotte. Great stuff there. Obviously not a very far trip for Duke, but Texas will come across the country for this one. It's 8:45 p.m. Eastern tonight, which I hadn't thought about this till just now, but it's probably in conjunction. The first college football playoff rankings are tonight, and those should be on ESPN. So maybe that's going to happen leading into this game or earlier in the night. So that makes a ton of sense. This game, Duke favored by 8.5 points at FanDuel. They've also got a couple cool individual lines, like Cam Boozer, over under 19.5 points, over under 10.5 rebounds for him. Based on what he did in exhibition, I would take the over on both of those. Thank you very much. We're about to talk in a second about all the big-time freshmen who had massive debuts yesterday in playing for their schools. Yes, typically against overmatched opponents, save for the two big games in Las Vegas for the Hall of Fame thing. Great stuff there, but man, another phenomenal freshman is going to be Cameron Boozer. And yes, Duke is not just Cameron Boozer, just like several of those other teams are not just Koa Peat or AJ Dybantsa, to talk about some of the other freshmen we talked about earlier. But man, Cam Boozer is special, right? Like he had that game against Tennessee in their exhibition last Sunday or the Sunday before, 23 points, 24 rebounds. I mean, just an absurd, and 6 assists, an absurd stat line. And there's nothing to make me think he won't do things like that all season long. So I'm going to be tuned in and watching Cam Boozer go off in this thing. But you think about the other freshmen for Duke. You've got his brother, Caden Boozer, who is a phenomenal point guard. You've got Nick Hamenia, who comes in, and man, in that Tennessee game, you think about Tennessee and Rick Barnes, man, they're rough, they tumble, they fight. Hamenia was getting in there fighting, and I love to see that. But obviously we've got Isaiah Evans, who's going to be an absolute dude. I'm really curious to see how Caleb Foster can do as Duke's point guard. Does he start there? And then obviously Patrick Ngongba taking over in the front court, they're coming in to take over that 5 position for Duke that's vacated by Malawach from last year, right? And so you've got this new look front court. Obviously, we saw a lot of Ngongba last year, and so we'll see what happens with that. And keep in mind, Cameron Boozer is a different player than Cooper Flagg, but he affects the game at a same high level way. Now, obviously, all of this I'm talking about Duke, and we haven't even hit Texas yet, because the big news there is this is the debut for Sean Miller, who leaves Xavier for the second time to now come to Austin, Texas. Good grief, you're going to have Tremont Mark and Jordan Pope. Simeon Wilcher transfers in from St. John's. You've got Kendall Weaver still there in Austin. And so Duke has some pieces as well, right? Like Tremont Mark could just blow up this game and drop 30 something and make it a game. And so I do expect Duke to win. Again, they're favored by 8.5 at FanDuel, but similar to the push that Villanova gave BYU, I'm looking for something like that here in game 1, and then Duke pulls away late. Like that's the game I'm looking for, but it's going to be a fun one to unpack on Wednesday when Andy is hosting the show. By the way, 20 of the 25 AP ranked teams were in action on Monday. The other 4 are today, and then Creighton is the last one they'll play tomorrow. So I just mentioned Duke. The other 3 that are in action today are all top 10 teams. Number 1, Purdue hosts Evansville tonight, 6:30 Eastern on Big Ten Network. Kentucky, number 9 in the nation, playing Nichols. That's 7 Eastern on SEC Network Plus. And then Texas Tech, number 10 in the nation, facing Lindenwood, 8 p.m. I just hit some kind of button and my computer went wacky on ESPN Plus. There we go. And so really good stuff there. And so excited to see those teams in action for the first time as well. But what I want to mention is this. We've talked about Koa Peat and his 30 burger earlier in the show. We've talked about AJ Dybantsa and his 21 points and everything else that those guys did. It wasn't just the scoring. But man, there are so many freshmen that just went off in some form or another on Monday. And again, that's not even getting yet to Cam Boozer, for example. That's not even getting yet to what Jasper might do for Kentucky. Darryn Peterson at Kansas, who, gosh, 6'6" lead guard. This dude is insane. 21 points for him for Kansas tonight. Remember, Peterson and Kansas are going to Chapel Hill on Friday to square off against Caleb Wilson from North Carolina, who scored 22 points on Monday night and had like 7 dunks. It was absurd. Darius Acuff and Malik Thomas, both at Arkansas, 22 points and 21 points respectively. Nate Ament at Tennessee, 18 points, 9 boards. Chris Senack at Houston, double-double with 12 points, 10 boards. Trey McKinney at Michigan, kind of maybe unheralded compared to some of these guys. I've got him as like an absolute dude. I think he's going to be fantastic. 21 points for him for Michigan on Monday night. David Merkovich at Illinois. Remember, they're not quite full strength with Stojakovic and Petrovic. Merkovich goes for 19 and 11 in this game. And so, I mean, you just look at these, and I know Merkovich is coming over from Europe, and it's just crazy how many of these elite freshmen are in these situations where they're going to produce at this high level. Sometimes because they have to, sometimes even despite the fact that they've got veteran or returners or transfers all around them, and it just doesn't matter because they're that high level. I cannot wait to watch this unfold all season long. All these great freshmen, going to be a lot of fun. I want to say a big word of thanks to both LEIF THULIN and Jake Hatch for joining me on the show today to unpack those 2 big games of Monday night. So much fun, and we're just getting started. Make plans to be here with us on Locked On College Basketball all season long. Don't miss a second of it. Man, Andy Patton will be back with you tomorrow and again on Thursday, and then he and I will be with you on Friday to get you ready for everything the weekend's got in store, because it's not just that Kansas, North Carolina game I mentioned. There's some great stuff on Saturday and Sunday as well. Be ready for all of it. You guys, lock in with us all season long. Subscribe to the show, video and audio. Join the Locked On College Basketball Discord. That's a great place to be, to chat college basketball with all of us all the time. It's a great place to hang out and to be. As always, I want to say apologies to the Lawyer family. Let's go Wild Popes, and cheers to the Mick Bruins. We'll talk again tomorrow, but until then, peace.